Right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time, we're going through the personal diary of Kendra.
Ooh, a diary.
Yeah, I love those. This one's really fascinating. It's really interesting. So she's an ice cream shop owner in New Orleans.
Okay.
And her entries, they give us this really unique look at how a place can become like a central hub for a community, often in ways that you wouldn't really expect.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So it's also a story about those moments, those aha moments, I guess you could call them, where our own perspectives start to change and shift, and how those personal like life events can kind of get woven into these like bigger societal shifts.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So are you intrigued?
Oh, definitely. I mean, what's not to love about ice cream and like personal journeys of discovery?
Exactly.
That sounds great.
So I think what's particularly interesting about Kendra's story is how it shows how like organically spaces can transform into these havens for specific communities.
Right.
Often without any like planning or intention behind it.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And it's like one day you're, just scooping ice cream, and the next you're kind of like at the heart of something so much bigger.
Absolutely.
So Kendra, in her diary, she talks about how she put her heart and soul into opening this place called All Scream for Ice Cream.
Catchy name.
It is, right?
Yeah.
And she finally like achieved her dream of taking her family's business, which was an ice cream truck,
Okay.
turning it into this like brick and mortar, shop.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. And early on, she hired Yo-Yo,
Okay.
who was a bisexual employee.
Okay.
And that, I guess you could say, seemingly small decision really ended up paving the way for this like major change in her customer base.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's really an example of how those actions that we might perceive as insignificant can actually snowball into these much larger shifts within communities.
Totally.
It makes me think about like word of mouth and how powerful it is.
Right.
Especially within communities that have historically sought out safe spaces where they feel like they belong and can be themselves.
Definitely. Totally. It's like you were saying, those seemingly small actions.
Yeah.
They kind of set off this chain reaction.
And just by being herself, Yo-Yo is already changing how Kendra sees things.
Oh, for sure. And Yo-Yo's the one who brings in her friends. We've got Mara, who we will definitely get to.
Right.
Oh, and then there's Bonnie. Okay, so Kendra describes Bonnie as like painfully shy. I know. Like to the point where it's almost hard for her to order.
See that little detail about Bonnie being so shy? That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like for a lot of LGBTQ plus folks, finding a place where they feel safe and accepted is everything.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if the rest of their life isn't like that, Places like Kendra's shop, they can be like this little haven, like almost like a chosen family spot. And for someone like Bonnie, who's so shy, that can be huge.
I get it. And that brings us to Mara.
Okay.
So Mara, she's this confident lesbian with a reputation for being, how do I put this, very well connected within the New Orleans lesbian community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Kendra, in her diary, she paints this picture of Mara bringing like a constant stream of partners to the shop, who then end up becoming regulars themselves.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if you find a place that you feel comfortable and welcome,
right,
why not share it with the people that you care about?
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And Mara's story, it really highlights this concept called social network theory.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Have you heard of this?
I have, yeah. It basically looks at how, like, our relationships are interconnected and how those connections, those links, they can impact individuals and communities as a whole.
And so in Mira's case, it's like her network, which was, built through her romantic relationships.
Right.
It created this, like, dense web of connections that brought this whole new community into Kendra's shop.
It's like a ripple effect almost.
It is.
Yeah, one person comes in, they enjoy it, they tell their friends tell their friends,
right,
and suddenly you have this whole new group of people who feel like they belong there.
Exactly. And I love this. Kendra even mentions this funny little moment in her diary.
Oh, tell me.
Where she asks Mara if it's awkward at all,
Yeah.
to be surrounded by her exes.
Yeah.
And Mira's response is just so casual. She's like, it's nothing, Miss Kendra.
It's like it perfectly encapsulates the unique dynamics that you find in close-knit communities. Yeah. It's not just about like romantic relationships. It's about a shared history, a
Yeah.
sense of belonging,
Right.
a support system that goes beyond individual connections.
I love that.
And these strong social ties, they often contribute to the resilience
Mm.
of marginalized communities,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
create this safety net of shared experiences and understanding.
That's so well said.
Thank you.
It really is. And it kind of gets at this idea of chosen family,
Absolutely.
where, people might not always find that acceptance and support
Right.
within their, biological families.
Exactly. It highlights how communities can create their own support systems and definitions of family,
Yeah.
fostering this sense of belonging and shared identity.
It's so true. And so as all Scream for Ice Cream became this, like, unexpected hub for the lesbian community,
Right.
it started to attract younger generations as well.
What happened?
Bonnie's girlfriend, Tony, who's this really thoughtful young woman
Mm-hmm.
who asks if her sister's LGBTQ plus after school club can meet at the shop during, like, summer break.
Oh, that's sweet.
It is, right?
Yeah.
And this is where we really start to see those generational shifts
Oh,
within the LGBTQ plus community
got it.
kind of come into play.
That makes sense.
So, we've got, like, Mira and her friends, broadly speaking, this Gen Z generation.
Yeah, those folks born between the mid-90s and the early 2000s.
Right, exactly.
Give or take.
And they often focus on, everyday life,
Yeah.
pop culture, things like that.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Gen Alpha group.
Those born after 2010, right?
Yeah, they bring this completely different energy to the shop.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So how does that difference kind of manifest itself?
Well, Kendra, in her diary, it's really interesting. She picks up on this difference, and she describes the Gen Z group as being more, like, laid back,
Okay.
while the high schoolers, the Gen Alphas,
Yeah.
they're so much more, like, vocal
Oh, wow.
about social issues and politics.
Okay.
Like, their conversations are full of these passionate debates about representation and activism.
That's fascinating.
It is, right?
I mean, it makes sense, though. Like,
Yeah.
this generational difference, it reflects the broader changes in society.
Right.
I mean, Gen Alpha, they've grown up in a world where LGBTQ plus rights and visibility are much more prominent,
Sure.
and technology has given them a platform to engage in activism
Yeah.
and connect with like-minded individuals on a global scale.
Like never before.
Exactly. So it's not surprising that they're often more politically aware and driven to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what impact growing up in this, like, digitally connected
Right.
and politically charged world
Mm-hmm.
will have on them, long term.
That is a great question. And it's something that, like, sociologists and cultural commentators are really looking into right now. It seems like this generation is already shaping the future of LGBTQ plus activism and advocacy.
It's fascinating. And with all of this happening in her shop,
Yeah.
Kendra's going through her own journey of, like, discovery
Okay.
and honestly some discomfort too.
Yeah.
She's trying to process these new realities,
Mhm.
confronting her own assumptions and realizing that, as she puts it, she has some blind spots.
That's a really important realization, and it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
This sense of, like, realizing that you've been a bit oblivious to other people's experiences.
Right.
It can be very uncomfortable,
It can.
but it's a crucial step towards empathy and understanding.
Definitely. And that's actually where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
with Kendra kind of wrestling with her own evolving understanding of the LGBTQ plus community
Sounds good.
and the challenges that they face.
Can't wait.
So stay tuned.
I will. So as we go deeper into Kendra's diary,
Right.
we start to see this mix of curiosity and concern.
Yeah.
She's fascinated by the community that's kind of, sprung up in her ice cream shop. But
Yeah.
she's also, like, becoming increasingly aware
Yeah.
of the potential for backlash
Yeah.
and the real risks that come with,
Yeah.
being visibly LGBTQ plus.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And this is where Kendra's diary takes on a little bit of a darker
Oh,
tone.
stop.
She starts seeing homophobic graffiti
Oh,
targeting the shop
no.
with, like, these awful messages
Whoa.
like
Yeah,
all dykes are going to hell.
that's terrible.
Yeah, and carpet munchers deserve to die.
Oh, my
It's
God.
like really disturbing stuff.
Awful.
Yeah, and it leaves Kendra feeling really overwhelmed and just heartbroken for her customers.
It's a reminder that for many LGBTQ plus individuals encountering prejudice and discrimination is like a constant in their lives.
Yeah, it's awful.
And it also highlights how, language can be used as a weapon.
Right.
To dehumanize and marginalize entire groups of people.
It's true, yeah.
And historically, these slurs have been used to justify violence and oppression.
Exactly.
And their impact can be incredibly damaging.
It really is.
Yeah.
So it's a stark reminder that even in like seemingly accepting environments, there's always that risk.
Right.
That hate is just like...
It's there, lurking.
Yeah. Right on the surface.
Underneath.
Kendra even talks about trying to comfort Yo-Yo.
Yeah.
And Yo-Yo sadly tells her that this kind of hate is just something that you like learn to live with.
Yeah, it's a sad reality.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to the strength and resilience of the LGBTQ plus community, facing that kind of adversity.
Yeah.
It often creates a powerful sense of solidarity and shared purpose.
It's like this, I guess, like a bonding experience in a way.
Exactly. A shared struggle that brings people together and strengthens their resolve.
And this is where I think Kendra has like one of her big aha moments. She realizes how naive she's been.
Right.
And how much she's taken for granted. Her own privilege and lack of exposure to this, like blatant hate.
It's a tough realization.
Yeah. And she's left feeling like really inadequate.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't even know where to begin to address it.
That feeling of inadequacy is something that a lot of people experience when they first become aware of their own blind spots and the ways that their privilege has shielded them from certain realities.
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming, but it's so crucial to developing empathy and understanding.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Kendra really like embodies that journey of trying to learn and grow. Yeah. She even writes about drawing these parallels to her own childhood.
Oh, okay.
When her mother, who is visibly Creole, explained to Kendra, who's ethnically ambiguous, the difference between those lived experiences.
Oh, wow.
And her mom told her, Kendra, the world is a lot scarier than just what you can see.
That's so powerful.
Isn't it?
It really highlights how different identities can shape our experiences and how those who don't fit neatly into, dominant categories often face additional challenges.
Exactly. And Kendra's concerns don't just stop at the graffiti.
Right.
She starts to also worry about the potential for escalating violence and the increasing politicization of her shop and her community.
It's another layer of complexity.
It is. Yeah. It highlights how, issues of LGBTQ plus rights and identity, even in like seemingly ordinary spaces, like an ice cream shop, can become these flashpoints in larger political debates.
It's true. And that politicization can have real-world consequences for people.
Exactly. It's like Kendra is stuck in this like whirlwind that she never signed up for.
Right.
She mentions the mayor visiting the shop.
Oh, wow.
Seemingly to try to secure, future queer votes.
Yeah.
Which then led to this really nasty hit piece.
Oh, geez.
In a conservative magazine called the Louisian Spectator.
Okay.
Labeling the shop as a malicious threat to society.
That's unbelievable. That selling ice cream could be seen as like a malicious threat.
Right.
It's absurd.
It is, but
it shows how certain groups, when they're seen as challenging, societal norms or power structures, their very existence becomes politicized and framed as a threat.
And despite all this anxiety and uncertainty, Kendra's diary ends on a surprisingly hopeful note.
Okay.
She decides to host a Friendsgiving for the LGBTQ plus community at her shop on Thanksgiving.
That's wonderful.
It is.
It speaks to her desire to create a space of belonging and celebration where everyone feels welcome and affirmed, regardless of their sexual orientation.
It's like she's saying, yes, there's hate out there.
Right.
But there's also love and community. And I'm going to focus on nurturing that.
I love that.
It's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
The New Orleans Saints are playing.
Nice.
And she's going to open up her shop to create this like haven for the people.
That's so great.
Who have brought so much joy and meaning to her life.
It's a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity,
individuals can choose to create spaces of hope
and resistance.
Yeah.
Kendra's decision to host Friendsgiving
Right.
speaks volumes about her commitment to fostering inclusivity and celebrating the diversity of her community.
It's true.
It's a small act of defiance against the forces that seek to divide and marginalize.
And that act of defiance
Yes.
brings us to the end of part 2 of our deep dive into Kendra's diary.
Great.
In part 3,
Yeah.
we're going to explore what we can learn from her experience
I'm excited.
and how those lessons might apply to our own lives. So we've spent the last couple parts of this deep dive really getting to know Kendra through her diary.
Her story is so powerful.
It is, right? Like, following her as her shop turns into this unexpected gathering place for the LGBTQ plus community down in New Orleans.
Yeah, it's amazing how her experience just kind of shows how, like, normal, everyday places can, like, spark these big changes, you know, both personally and for, like, society as a whole.
It's true. And through it all, she's constantly learning and growing. Like, she starts recognizing her own biases, confronts her discomfort.
Right.
And ultimately, she chooses to, like, embrace this community that's become such a big part of her life.
It's a great example of how creating welcoming spaces often starts with just these small acts of, like, kindness and understanding.
And it makes me think about, like you mentioned earlier, that idea that those small actions can cause these ripple effects.
Right, exactly.
Like, it's crazy to think that Kendra hiring Yo-Yo, who was bisexual, ended up causing this chain reaction that brought a whole new group of people into her shop.
Yeah, it's a really powerful concept.
It is.
It means that, like, we all have the potential to make a difference, you know?
Totally.
Even if it's just, like, little things here and there.
It's like kind of like that butterfly effect, right?
Ew, I like that.
Where a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the world.
Right.
And then it causes a hurricane on the other.
Exactly. It's a little dramatic to compare a business to a hurricane.
Maybe a little.
But you get the idea.
You get the sentiment, yeah.
Our actions can have these big consequences, for better or worse.
So true. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Kendra's journey, let's go back to some of the key takeaways from her diary.
Okay, sounds good.
First one, this beautiful example of an unintentional safe space.
Right. She didn't set out to create that.
Right.
It just kind of happened.
It did, organically.
Through these small decisions that she made.
Exactly. And then there's the way she dealt with those generational differences within the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, like realizing that even though they share this identity, they also have different perspectives and priorities.
And then, of course, like the importance of empathy.
Mm-hmm. A huge one.
Right. And confronting your own biases.
Recognizing those blind spots.
Yeah.
We all have them.
We do.
It's part of being human.
And Kendra was willing to, like, acknowledge those blind spots and work toward, like, greater understanding.
Which is something we can all learn from.
Definitely. And her experience makes me wonder, like, how can these seemingly ordinary places, like an ice cream shop, a bookstore, even a park bench, become these catalysts for social change and personal growth?
It's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
It is.
And I think the answer is that change often happens in these unexpected ways. And we all play a part in fostering that inclusivity and understanding. So as you think about the places you go, the communities you're a part of, what steps can you take to promote that inclusivity?
Right. Maybe it's just a conversation with a friend, a gesture of support to a marginalized group, or just being willing to listen and learn.
And those little actions, they multiply, and then they have this huge impact.
Exactly.
Creating this world where everyone feels like they belong.
And that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Feeling that sense of belonging and acceptance.
It's beautiful.
It is.
Well, that's the beauty of these deep dives, right?
I think so.
We explore these personal stories, unpack these complex issues, and hopefully we come away with, like, a little more knowledge.
A little more empathy.
Yeah, and a renewed sense of possibility.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Kendra's world.
It was my pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.